long, long time ago, on an island far, far away,
was a batshit insane scientist named Dr. Kirk, who managed to create a time portal that unwillingly transported dinosaurs into the current age, which take over the facility on said island, eating most of the employees and ruining the complex, cutting off communication with the mainland. So an elite squad of soldiers infiltrate the island to rescue Dr. Kirk and obtain his research before it's too late.
Also, you play as a woman.
Isn't that progressive of you, 1999?
Her name is Regina. Oh well, never mind.
After Regina, Gale and Rick's arrival on the island, they realise they're missing one of their teammates.
You didn't learn his name. Pretty sure he's going to die. And he did.
Before they can carry on with their mission, they must gain access to the facility. This is where we first see signs of foul play. What could it be? In truth, this is pretty much a Resident Evil clone by Capcom. It was even developed by the same team that made the Resident Evil series, including game director Shinji Mikami, under the alias Capcom Production Studio 4. Not exactly unique, is it? But this isn't just a straight up clone with dinosaurs. There's plenty that set these two series apart, even if they did reuse some assets and character animations.
You gotta save money somehow.
Instead of pre-rendered backgrounds, the developers decided to incorporate real-time 3D environments. This allowed the camera to move along with Regina, giving it much more of a cinematic feel. But rendering these areas in real time became a challenge when they wanted to create detailed environments. The team would forego a scene set in the jungle because the PlayStation just couldn't handle it. That would explain why in Dino Crisis 2 they moved back to pre-rendered backgrounds. Despite being fully 3D, there's still fixed camera perspectives and tank controls, but it isn't as tense as the Resident Evil series. A lot more freedom of movement has been given to the player. Adding to this feeling, throughout the game you'll be given choices, similar to Resident Evil 3. Most can be boiled down to whose plan do you go with. Gale's plan will generally be more action focused, whereas Rick's will be much more puzzle based. What choice you make will affect the ending and which route you take around the facility, although ultimately it doesn't really matter, as you'll go through the same areas anyway. But speaking of puzzles, these are at the best of times
Tedious.
They're not as confusing or require huge leaps of logic like those in Silent Hill, but they can be just as confusing. Specifically, the crane puzzles. Why would anyone operate machinery in this way? You need a specialist just to move the bloody crates. Other times, the puzzles mainly rely on you remembering codes, but they are very easy to miss. The only way I could see you successfully completing this game with very little hassle would be to read every single file you come across and note down any small detail, no matter how trivial. Oh, and if you come across a computer or a dead body, remember their location. They are instrumental towards your progression. At a certain point in the game, you'll come across a fingerprint scanner and an ID card. In order for you to access new areas, you'll need to upgrade the ID card.
The only way to do so is to scan a particular person's fingerprints. Head to the nearest computer terminal, upload said fingerprints, type in their employee code number, and then you can overwrite the ID card. A lot of this is just guesswork, or rereading old files you've collected so you can figure out the clues as to which code to use. This process is just arbitrary, especially if you haven't been paying attention like me.
Even with that ambiguous fetch quest out of the way, just regular doors require a lot of backtracking. Much like in other survival horror games of that period, you need a key to unlock certain doors so you can progress. But it's not as simple as that. For each door, you need what's known as a DD code and a DDK input. Then you can solve a quick puzzle of eliminating letters to figure out the password. Not too complicated, but there's a section mid-game where as soon as you make some minor progression, you're halted immediately if you haven't found a specific code or input, and then have to search the entire facility for an item just to make another minor bit of progress. I'll explain. So I had to go find a key card to access the elevator to the lab on the floor below. First, I had to rewrite the key card with new data. In order to do that, I had to scan someone's fingerprints. I thought since I already had the fingerprint scanner, I could just scan their prints and rewrite the card with the device.
No.
I had to find a specific terminal. Granted, the file I read when I got the fingerprint scanner said I had to use the computer in the office to do this. But where's the office? There's no way to find out on the map where the office is. The only solution is to either remember where the office is or enter each and every single room and just hope that eventually you enter the right one. Once I found the office, I had to enter a specific code. I didn't know it, so once I reread a bunch of files and found the code, rewrote the ID card, rode the elevator down to the basement, I got stopped by a door that required unlocking because I only had the input. So I had to run around the facility once again just to find this missing item. Eventually I just gave up and looked online. But the worst puzzle though? That goes to what I call the card code minigame. Towards the end, depending on the choices you've made, you'll have to chase down Dr. Kirk as he's run away. The cheeky bugger. But he's managed to hide away in a part of the facility locked behind this panel. The only way to unlock the door is to play a memory game. Yes, a memory game.
Oh my god, this place is about to blow!
Let me just play this game and we'll escape, I promise.
Progression in the game can either be rewarding or just utterly irritating, because information can be very sparse and requires you to do a lot of investigation. Sometimes guesswork, especially the fucking crane puzzles. And towards the end, the action really takes a nosedive, and it mainly just becomes about getting key cards and puzzles. I suppose this was an apology to all the fans of the Resident Evil games that wanted more puzzles. Well, here you go. You've got so many puzzles to complete and items to collect, it just becomes a giant puzzle collectathon. Most of the time, I didn't even know I was making progress. Essentially, I went by this golden rule. If there's a cutscene, you know you're going in the right direction.
So in summary, the story is pretty interesting actually. A lot of B-movie inspiration, especially the cheesy dialogue and the setup. Something like Roger Corman's Carnosaur series or Primal Species especially, that would be a direct comparison. Gameplay-wise, this is exactly what survival horror fans would want. There's more than enough reasons to have a second playthrough. It's ultimately an in-between step of Resident Evil 3 and Silent Hill. There's more variety in terms of action than Resident Evil 2, but the puzzles have been made far less simple. They actually challenge you in this game.